talking about grains, a subject that comes to my mind a lot because I really am against grains in so many different ways. I can't even begin to explain it. So in this video, I'm going to do my damnedest to show you why they are absolute garbage and trash for the body, and how some reason these have made the base of the old food pyramid and we're still consuming them simply out of convenience and cheap factors and addictive qualities that they have in them. I mean, it's a lot cheaper than heroin, right? So this food group has somehow surpassed our own base food group in the world, which should be like fruits. So what's going on is now we've gone from like our main sustenance and our base caloric foundation of what we need to put in our bodies, and we've replaced that, and now we supplement our fruits, and we eat an entirely new food group. Now, when we're talking about other things being in part of the diet that are worse, and that, yeah, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of processed foods and flours and sugar and then soda and then preservatives and then flesh and animal foods and then pressed fats from, fish and just lots of junk that are out there. There's no doubt about that. However, grain, as you are going to see, is a poison. It is toxic. It contains some phytates. Not all of these phytates have the ability to absorb and pull nutrients from the body, so I'm not necessarily as concerned with those as a lot of people are. However, they do make an impact on the body. Now, as far as long-term success and failure rate with grain, you're always going to find detriments after long-time consumption of these grains. The reason why is because they were never part of our genetic heritage ingestion. We have been consuming them for quite a while, but different forms. We forget that natural things that we've been doing to our foods in the last recent years, and going back a couple thousand years, we have learned hybridization. This is different than genetic alteration or GMO, genetic modification. That's more of recent things, when they've been mixing the flounder fish with the tomato so it's cold resistant, and things like that. But I'm more along the lines of specifically talking about hybridization. Now, what's going on with these things is going back in time, we would look at emmer, and we would mix that with goat weed, and the ancient Egyptians formed spelt. And then spelt formed, and then they started to realize, well, spelt can grow better than emmer, so that just kind of died out, and it's been gone. And then what they did is they took spelt, and they hybridized that into kamut, and the kamut grew even better for the Egyptians. So spelt died off, and then that was actually found recently and sprouted and started to be grown again as more of an heirloom seed, when it's actually just another genetic variant hybrid of something else. So yeah, it might be better, but it's still garbage for the system. Now, what about gliadins? They pass the blood-brain barrier of the body. They're disruptive to the very vagal nervous system in our bodies, which is actually connected to the colon region of our body, and they're very interconnected. They have to do with how well we remember things. Our memory is interconnected with that. Our inflammatory system. And the gliadins and the glutenins have a very inflammatory response, and I don't care what they say about, oh, only 1% to 2% of the population is affected negatively from gluten. That is a bunch of shit, and you know why? It's because they have an inflammatory response on the mucous membrane inside of the system, and you can tell when you're even flipping the channel of the TV. You're going to come across and you'll see this little kid standing over there on the grass, and he's starving to death, but he's got this huge distended stomach, and why would that be? It's because we're sending them grains and grasses and rice, and these things cause this inflammation of the mucous membrane and this swelling of the gut. You see it when a person has what's called the beer gut. And why would they have that? It's because their beer contains wheat, which causes inflammation. And this inflammation just rummages through the body. So though you might be able to eat a burger and not have an allergy response to it, that doesn't mean that your body doesn't react from everything that you put into your very mouth. So these grains are a complete offense to me and your health and everyone's health and to the ecosystem. They completely eradicate the topsoil. They pull nutrients out of them, even heavy metals. You can get your blood tested if you're a heavy grain eater, and you're going to find cadmium levels very high in this, in your bloodstream. That's a heavy metal. That's toxic. That's garbage for the system. We can look back at the ancient Egyptians. What do we find when we look at their mummified remains? Because they were so good at preserving them. We find that they were heavy grain eaters because their population grew, and there were great times of famine when there was nothing else to eat besides grain. Now, what am I saying? They should have starved to death? No, of course not. They should probably moved. But regardless, they ate the grain, and this is what we see happen to them. Today, we can go to the grocery store. We're not relying upon a famine kicking in at this point in time where we can actually go to the store and buy anything that we want, and we can eat it and we can thrive. So why in the world we would choose grain as all of a food is still beyond me. I just don't think people really know, hence the video that I'm making with you. So going back to the Egyptians, we can look at the Egyptians, we can see down the line that there are arthritic and osteoarthritic bones in nature. Their degenerative effects on their bones and teeth were throughout the entire culture and civilization that they were living in. They were not immune from it, and that was why. It was because of their massive amount of grains that they were consuming in these phytates. They didn't know that you have to soak phytates in a pH of 4 to really soak all these anti-nutrients out of the grains. They probably didn't even know about anything like anti-nutrients. They were probably just lucky to be alive. So they just stored everything, you know, tried to get the rodents and rats away from it and keep the moisture off of it, and that was their goal. Live. You know, now it's thriving. Now it's understanding what disease is, feeling good at all times, neglecting disease, being able to feel good all the time. And we can do that now because knowledge is so powerful. And really, if you think about them as being a food group, I mean, why they would be something that a human body could sustain themselves on for any quite amount of time is just very inconvenient for the body. It doesn't have thyronase in it. There's no parotid hormone in them. There's no salvatore amylase or pidilin. There's no vitamin K or vitamin P. There's no copper. It's not surrounded by absorbic acid to protect these things that you would find in whole food nature. And that's another reason why the raw food diet is real, is because those foods in that natural state contain these clathorative elements and these really beneficial compounds that make it so you can thrive. Grains do not have these elements. They are garbage. We can go back even farther, and let's go back to the Iceman. The Iceman is a skeleton, not a skeleton, a body that was found in the Alps, or the frozen tundra area. I think that's why they call him like Ozzy. He was found in this region of the mountain range, and his body was laying dead, and he was shot in the back by somebody that was probably hunting him up in that mountain region area because he was found far away from where he lived. And they checked out his body, and they pulled out his hair analysis, and they actually found that he lived a life of a vegan. Now, though there was meat found in his stomach, I'm guessing that's probably when he decided to run for his life, and he became like a nomadic Indian, when they also became like buffalo eaters and meat eaters themselves. And what was happening is that when they were finding what he ate, it was grain. And guess what he had all over his body? Massive amounts of degradation on the bones, horrible problems in the gut, and with pain on his body. They found that he had tattoos, and underneath the tattoo area of his body where he had great pain, they had cut a lot of ligaments to alleviate this pain. And all of that was from inflammation and heavy amounts of grain that was in his diet. So again, I am not a fan of this food group. I wish that nobody really consumed it, and if they did, very minimal. I'm talking about when you go out with family on holidays, have some bread, pull out the middle, don't eat the glycated crust. That is not the good part for you. I know that's the myth and what we were raised on. Eat the crust, that's where the nutrients are. Yeah, that's a lie. That's non-scientific. It's all advanced glycolytic end products. It's been roasted. That's where the junk lays. Now you have to do things to counterbalance that, and that's a lot harder to do because most people don't have a microscope or to see their own blood. So remember to keep that balance. I know I talk quite a bit faster than I normally do. I try to really talk slower for you guys, but this video I wanted to keep short, but it had such a long topic range of things that I wanted to cover. I'm sure I didn't get to all of them, so I might have to do a part 2. So if you liked it, rate it, and I'll make another one. If not, just please don't eat grain. All right, out. What are you still doing here? You see all those books? I'm not the only one that hates grain.